Hello, welcome to Underlords Universe, and this is a place where we get together and discuss the stuff that inspires us to be creative in our own right. And my brother Brent and I, Mr. Clairvoyant over here, is he and I have both been big, longtime Maiden fans. And with the brand new Run for Your Lives tour, we thought we'd just connect over Zoom and discuss our reactions to the set list, the staging, etc. Because, longtime Maiden fans. We've seen Maiden many, many times, and we were really looking forward to this tour, just like everybody else that's a giant Maiden fan out there. So if you've stumbled across this channel for the first time and you like the way we approach things, feel free to give us a like, subscribe, comment if you have thoughts about this new Maiden tour. Yeah, Brent, yeah, I don't know. This was kind of billed as a like I don't know. I think Bruce Dickinson said that this set list, this was going to have like songs like, oh my God, they're playing this. I can't believe they're playing that. And then
Mm,
yesterday, I was around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Iowa time, and which would have been like 9 o'clock Budapest time. I started keeping track, like a lot of Maiden fans, of what they were playing, and I started texting you right away. Oh, they're playing this, they're playing this, they're playing this. So, it's been 24 hours now since that opening show. I've had a chance to watch an entire bootleg video of the show. And like spoiler alerts coming up here because, if you're a Maiden fan and you are watching this, odds are you probably watched a lot of other stuff on this already. So, I don't feel like we're necessarily spoiling it for anybody. And they haven't even announced any U.S. dates yet. I'm assuming there will be some announcement of U.S. dates, and I fully intend to try to get to see this show. But have you been able to see a full recording of this show yet, or what have you seen of this show so far, other than the set list?
yeah, I've just seen a few songs, maybe three.
Oh, okay,
I pulled up a full show, and I fully intend to watch it, but I've just watched a few tracks so far.
okay. So
Um,
this morning I watched about 40, no, about 50 minutes. And then on a break at work, a lunch break, I watched a little bit more. And then after work, I watched the rest of it. So, yeah, I wanted to go through a few things, like obviously the set list, the staging. There's differences here with the staging that they've never done before. Um, and then of course, Simon Dawson, new drummer. So, who's also in Steve's band, British Lions. So, those are kind of the three elements I wanted to get your take on. So and I'm looking at my notes here. Okay. So one of the things, a lot of Maiden fans, we can be really nitpicky about a lot of things because we love, the band so much. And we can be, it may be a little hard to please when it comes to set lists and things like that. So the thing I want to say before we get into the set list stuff is the fact that they are out doing anything at this stage in their lives is awesome. And I will take
yeah,
any Maiden tour, playing pretty much anything that they want to play. So
sure.
anything I have to say regarding the set list, it's not nitpicking. It's just kind of a thought and observation. Oh, it could have been this, or what about that? Not really complaints at all. Um, so the word disappointments is a little bit of a stretch necessarily, but as the word surprises might be a little bit of a stretch. But looking at the set list, were there any surprises or disappointments from your perspective?
Um, One slight surprise,
Okay.
which I was under the impression that there might be some more surprises.
Yeah.
But and I made some notes about what surprises I might have introduced if I were involved in this.
Okay. Okay.
The only surprise that I really came up with was that they brought Seventh Son back, the song,
Okay.
um, which I don't think they've done that in a number of years. I think maybe the last time they did it was that I forget the name of the tour,
Made in
but
England. Made in England tour.
yeah. So other than that, I didn't really see any surprises. Now, I'm also going to preface my comments and echo what you said that anything they do at this stage of their career is great, but I would have liked to have seen a couple more surprises in there. Um, and I think this was a great opportunity for them to do that. And I'm going to go so far as to say maybe a bit of a missed opportunity because it is 50 years on, and are they going to have many more chances to do this? Now, granted, they might be changing the set list as they get into the tour. That maybe they'll change the set list, early on in the tour. We don't know that as of yet, but after the first show, I thought, it's kind of predictable. Which when they do these types of tours, it's pretty standard that they kind of roll these tracks out. When they're touring for a new album, they're heavy on the new album, and then they sprinkle in some of the classics with the new album. So that wasn't really a surprise, but seeing him do Seventh Son, I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that was really the only surprise that I really could see in the set list was that actually.
Okay. So I'm gonna kind of nuance a response to this. So Seventh Son, yeah, they played it on the Made in England tour, which was what, 2012, 2013. And the only other time they played it was on the actual Seventh Son of a Seventh Son tour. So
Right.
yeah, that's you can make a strong argument. That's a pretty deep cut. It's also a 10-minute long track. So, that's kind of a cool thing. Um, they haven't played Murders in the Rue Morgue since 2005. So it's been 20 years since they played Murders in the Rue Morgue. And they hadn't, and I'd have to go back and look, but it was, a couple decades before. May in fact have been the Number of the Beast tour that they, well, no.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, I have to double check. Maybe Peace of Mind tour. So, but it's been a long time. I mean, they haven't played Murders in the Rue Morgue on very many tours. So put it that way. Only a couple. And they actually haven't played Killers since '99 when um Bruce and Adrian rejoined. So
Mhm.
those are, that's and I had to kind of go back and double check that 'cause it seems like they played Killers more recently than that, but I don't believe so. Um yeah, it's okay. It's like, they're playing, Wrathchild and Run to the Hills and Trooper and Aces High and, you know, etc. And it's like, okay, obviously they're gonna play Number of the Beast, and it's like, okay, it's not, does it really live up to Bruce's statement when he was like, oh my God, they're playing this, they're playing this? That might have been a bit of an overstatement on Bruce's part. So. I'm just going to quickly run through the set list here, just kind of for a reference point. So, obviously, they do the intro, with, UFOs, Doctor, Doctor, but they always kind of seem to do some sort of like intro after, after the house lights go down. And this time it's Ides of March, which is fine, it's great, but of course they're not playing it. It's just, pumped in
Yeah.
studio. Um, then you get Murders in the Rue Morgue, and which is followed by Wrathchild and Killers. Then Phantom of the Opera, Number of the Beast. Then Clairvoyant, Power Slave, 2 Minutes to Midnight, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, Run to the Hills, Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, Trooper, Hallowed Be Thy Name, Iron Maiden, and then the encore, Aces High, Fear of the Dark, and Wasted Years. Um, since the tour was billed from the debut Iron Maiden through Fear of the Dark, I was actually kind of expecting. I mean, I'm not surprised that they didn't play anything from No Prayer for the Dying, but I held out hope that they would, just because anything from that album would be a deep cut, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
now, a couple of other things about the songs that they chose to play. Rime of the Ancient Mariner, I absolutely love Rime of the Ancient Mariner. In
Mhm.
fact, when I was watching it this morning, when they when they when they you know when they started playing Rime of the Ancient Mariner on the recording that I was watching, that's when it's like I had like a slight emotional response to it. It was like, oh yes, just because I love it so much.
Mhm.
So that's great, you know. And they haven't played it since the Summer Back in Time tour, 2009, and I don't think it had been played since the Power Slave tour in '85. Since then,
They did it on the, if I'm not mistaken, they did it on the somewhere in time tour.
well,
But
that's
that
like
I think,
that just that oh, on the Somewhere in Time tour. Okay, so they
yeah,
might so
I think
80,
that
80
was the last time.
so basically the mid to late '80s, and then the Somewhere Back in Time tour, which is 2008. So, awesome. It's like, oh my God, they're playing Ryman G. Mariner. How great is this? Now,
Yeah.
having said that, though, it's 13 minutes long. If you
Yeah.
add that to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, that's 23 minutes. Two
Mhm.
songs, 23 minutes. What else could they have played in 23 minutes? Now,
Yeah.
again, it's not a criticism, but I did have an observation about that. So I was just asking myself, just as a little mental exercise, okay, well, what else could they have played in 23 minutes? And here's what I'm just going to throw out some songs that I think could have been, alternative um, songs in that time frame. They could have played Infinite Dreams, which
Oh
they
yeah.
did not play on the Maiden England tour, which Infinite Dreams is one of my all-time favorite Maiden songs. So there's that. I th I
Good. Good.
thought that there was actually a possibility that they could just blow the minds of us diehards and play Total Eclipse.
Okay, just full disclosure, I have notes and
Yeah,
I call Lost Opportunity, and then I have a handful of songs written. Total Eclipse was the first one that I wrote down.
was Total Eclipse. Uh-huh. Um, I also thought Be Quick or Be Dead.
That's on my list.
As a matter of fact, I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't play that in a sense. I mean, I'm not surprised they didn't play it, but it's like you're
Great opportunity.
I mean, I know they're going to play Fear of the Dark, but it's like, I mean, imagine this. Imagine that they do the Ides of March intro like that, the pre-recorded intro, because they didn't go, I mean, they went from Ides of March into Murders in the Rue Morgue. Imagine if they went Ides of March with that the way it ends, and then like that would have been a surprise. Like that would have been like, oh my God, no one expects that, right? And then go into Murders in the Rue Morgue. That would have been an interesting, you know, way to open
Love it.
the show.
Yeah.
As cheeky and stupid as the lyric is, I think it's like this was the one chance that I think that they could have that they had to kind of have an excuse to play Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. It was
On my
like
list.
it was a number one song in England.
Mhm.
It's the only song I think arguably that really could legitimately, make it into a set um from No Prayer for the Dying.
I
And
agree.
you know, and I thought visually they could have had an opportunity because as a lot of people know, that song was originally written for a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And it's like they could have had like an image of Eddie almost like Freddy, with really long,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. The
and
glove. Or,
yeah, I'm not sure what would have all had to, be taken to do that. But at the same time, it's like, could they do that? Um, and even though it's not my favorite Maiden song of all time, it's nowhere near it. It would have been like really cool to, you know,
yes.
to see
Exactly.
them play it. Um, So, and then
So they haven't done that. They haven't done that song in over 30 years.
yeah.
So,
Now, of course, I mean, and who knows? These, some of these things could be matters of things like, I don't know, from their standpoint, it could be a matter of things like, I just don't want to play it, you know? Because you
right,
have to figure when they're putting a set list together, it's like, is that something that really speaks to them at this stage in their career? It's like, hey guys, can we really see ourselves playing that? I don't know. And if they kind of go, no, then they're probably not going to play it. I'm not saying that I know what goes on in their minds, but um, the same thing could be said for something like 22 Acacia Avenue. It's like, God, I mean, what a song, right? But maybe you can almost kind of hear Bruce maybe saying something like, "Yeah, I just don't feel like singing that." You know, I don't know. I don't know. But what you do know is that they have to feel comfortable with what they're playing, and um, that's one of those things we just might not know. But I would also say this in terms of like super deep cuts. That's like other than Total Eclipse. Yeah, and
hmm
I wouldn't say Be Quick or Be Dead would be a huge deep cut considering the fact that it was a single from Fear of the Dark, but Total Eclipse, obviously, but Sea of Madness.
oh,
And
I-
here's a real wild one. And I put this on my list knowing full well no chance they'd play this, but just imagine it, all right? Judas Be My Guide.
oh, that well,
Because
yeah.
not only, I mean, first of all, that's one of my favorite songs on Fear of the Dark, but also imagine this, because Adrian was not on the original recording because he wasn't in the band at the time. Imagine him doing backing vocals with
Oh,
Bruce live on that.
it would be brilliant.
Be
Yeah,
awesome. Be awesome. You can only dream, right? Infinite dreams. Infinite dreams. But
yeah, yeah.
so
I
so
made a
what
list of
else
him.
what else is on your list that you would have been like, okay, they could have played this or the deep cuts or whatever. What else would you have?
So my approach was basically, there's no Judas Be My Guide on my list. My thought process was, okay, there's some other songs that they have done, whether it be 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or whatever, that I
Mhm.
thought now's a good time if you're going to do it. This is a great opportunity because, again, how many more tours like this are they going to do? Because, again, when they tour for a new record, they're heavy on the new record and then they throw in, the classics.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, here's some songs that they could have potentially put in here, and maybe they will at some point. But the ones that I wrote down are Moonchild,
Yeah.
which I the Ides of March going into Moonchild would be a great way to start the show.
Yeah.
Um, that's one that I wrote down. You already mentioned Total Eclipse, Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter,
Hmm.
which, like you, that's not my favorite song on the record, but that's the most logical and that they would, if they're going to play a song off that album, that would probably be the only one, I would think. I mean, I'd love to hear Tail Gunner, but I thought Be Quick or Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter would be the logical choice. I wrote down Be Quick or Be Dead because they have done that. It was a single. They opened up the Fear of the Dark tour with that song.
Hmm.
It's a great song. Um, I think that would have been really cool. And then the other two I wrote down were From Here to Eternity because it's kind of sing-songy and they did a video for that back in the day. They played that on that. I don't think they played it ever since that tour.
Yeah, they did.
But I thought,
Oh no, no, I'm sorry. No, you're right. I think you're right. I
yeah,
think that's the only tour they
I
played.
thought, yeah, I thought that'd be a cool song to reintroduce us to. And then the last one I wrote down was "Afraid to Shoot
I was
Strangers,"
I was
which I
gonna
thought,
say I was gonna say that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
They
so
did they did
those
continue
aren't
to play
super
that.
deep. I'd say "From Here to Eternity" is probably the deepest track there, but those are ones that I think really yeah, yeah. But those, I think those were, you know, I think those are ones that they could have at least considered. And I think if they would have thrown in two or three of those, then you would look at a set list a little bit differently and say, yeah, they kind of stretched it a little bit here, you know. So it's not really like a greatest hits tour. Now, again, it's not, it isn't a greatest hits tour, but when it's Run for Your Lives, um, I'm not surprised they're doing Murders in the Rue Morgue. I'm not surprised they're doing Killers because we were told, hey, it's going to be like from the first album through Fear of the Dark. So I figured they're going to hit on those songs. But I would have loved to have heard Afraid to Shoot Strangers instead of Fear of the Dark. I know that's not going to happen, but
Yeah.
I don't need to hear Fear of the Dark live again for the
Yeah.
umpteenth. I don't
Now,
need it.
yeah, a couple things though, and I know you're already gonna because you're referring to like ideally what you would like to hear live.
Yeah,
And it's like, when they say, this might be one of the last tours that some of these songs are ever played, they also have to think to themselves, this is one of the last, this might be the last chance to play some of these songs live. Which ones do we really want to actually go out and play?
sure.
And I think the other thing about it is just the flow of the show itself, right?
Yeah.
And they got to consider the ebb and flow, and I got to consider my dog not knocking over my light here. They got to consider the ebb and flow of the show. And one of the things that Rhyme Ancient Mariner and Seventh Son have going for them is they both have those breakdowns, those quiet parts that where it brings the show down and you can breathe a little bit. And when I watched the show from beginning to end, it's like, yep, okay, there's a logic to this. Like it works. If you just start throwing in some of those other tracks, like, oh, it's this track, throw this track in, throw that track in, it's like the continuity and the flow might have been a little weird, been a little wonky.
Yeah.
Um, so that's not to say you couldn't come up with a great set list, including some of those songs. Certainly you could. Um, but it's a matter of you got, six guys in the band. I mean, obviously Simon's probably not going to have a huge say in the set list, I would presume. And I don't know I've never seen anything about how they make their set list, but I'm going to guess that Steve and Bruce are probably Steve because it's Steve, and Bruce because he's got to carry the load vocally. But you know, yeah, those are just some factors I think that are going to have to go into it. But I don't know. That's a good segue, I think, into the role of Simon on this, Simon Dawson. So, you know, you watched a few tracks, a few songs. Which songs did you see, and what did you think of um, his performance?
Let's see. What did I see? I saw The Clairvoyant.
Mhm.
I watched The Trooper, and I watched what was the other one? Was it Wrathchild? There was like one more, or not, no, it was Murders in the Rue Morgue.
Okay.
Because the video that I saw, somebody posted about how Simon botched the intro to Murders in the Rue Morgue, and I was like, well, that'll be interesting to see. I didn't catch if he did, I didn't necessarily catch that, but so yeah, those were the three tracks that I watched in full, and I fully intend to watch the whole show. I got it pulled up on my browser, and I'll be watching it over the next day or so. So those are the three tracks that I saw that
Mhm.
watched the full track.
What did you think?
Well, it's clearly it's not Nico. I mean, if you didn't know, if you just heard it and didn't even see anything, you would know that's not Nico.
Yeah,
And that's not
I
bad,
agree.
or it's not Nico. So the songs have a different feel and sound to them, which after all these years, it's weird.
Hmm.
It's just weird. Um, that's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just it's this is a different Iron Maiden because his style was such a big part of their sound.
Yeah.
His his tom fills, his style of playing, the bounce that he had, the way he did the galloping stuff.
Well, and that's kind of an interesting point because I think especially in rock, um, and you know, and not so much it seems like with a lot of real modern players, a lot of modern players sound almost machine-like.
Mhm.
I don't know how it seems like they're all a lot of modern drummers today just seem to be like they're learning all of the same techniques and the same, I don't know. But, Simon's he's obviously an older drummer. I don't know how old he is, but he's not a new guy on the drumming circuit, so to speak. So, I think that some of these older drummers they developed a style that's more identifiable and unique. Obviously he's not as old as Nico. He's not as old as like an Ian Pace or whatever, but I think he's still from a generation that's like, you know, they develop their own a little bit of their own feel. And it's like, when you hear Ian Pace, it's not John Bonham. When you heard John Bonham, it wasn't Nico McBrain. When you hear Nico, it's like, so to your point, it's like you can hear that's not Nico. And
Right.
I think that's actually a good thing, you know.
Mhm.
Um, I think it made the songs kind of, it's like, oh, it's a little interesting. It's like, oh, like okay, like the verses to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, for example. It's like, oh, the feels just a little different in there in that verse. That's one thing I noticed where it's like, well, that's interesting, you know. And so to me, it was just an interesting thing. I've had, enough, not a huge amount of experience, but enough experience with different drummers to kind of go, okay, yeah, it feels different because it's a different drummer, you know, when you're playing something or when you're listening to something. So I thought was great. And it's like, we can't control the reality. Nico's not in the band. And um it's like, okay, do we want Iron Maiden with Simon or do we want no Iron Maiden? And I know the answer to
Mhm.
that for me. I mean, there's no question.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought after watching the show, I was just like, guy's great. He fits in. It sounds great. You know, when he introduced Simon after the first few songs, the crowd started chanting. At least on the video I saw, you could hear the crowd chanting, "Simon, Simon, Simon." It was like that was cool. That was
This,
cool. The Iron Maiden fan base on day one, night one, is welcoming this guy in as a replacement for a guy who had been playing with the band for over 40 years. And it's like that was cool. I thought that was cool. So, yeah.
yeah, it's cool, and I'm not surprised, and I look forward to seeing that. And I wouldn't want Nico's replacement to try to play like him. Like you said, these guys, I would guess Simon to be in his 60s, probably, maybe early 60s. I don't know how old he is,
I'm gonna
but
do some digging here.
he's played with Steve for at least a decade because, like you said, he's been in British Lion and they've done two records and they've done some touring together. So he's played with Steve for a long time. So clearly he knows how Steve plays. He plays well with Steve. He's obviously familiar with the Maiden catalog, and I thought that, like I said, that it's not him because Nico has such an identifiable style, but he holds his own. He's clearly into the songs. He's kind of a heavy hitter, which is kind of cool. He plays with some power,
Hmm.
and it's like, okay, it's not Nico, but it's still good. Like Maiden, we're going to bring in a guy who's not good. I mean, seriously,
Well,
huge shoes to fill. And from what I saw, he did quite well.
yeah, and they're gonna bring a guy who's at least somewhat of their contemporary, I think. Um, so
And
I
a guy and a guy who can obviously do, a guy who can obviously do the job. So that's not even an issue or a question. And someone that Steve probably feels real comfortable with. and so Simon is a logical choice. I think he checks all those boxes, but and he's only going to get better. I mean, this was the first show. I mean, you can only imagine. I mean, you know, maybe he wasn't nervous. I don't know, but first show, Maiden on this tour, you know, like you said, you know, stepping in for a guy who'd been with the band for over 40 years, big shoes to fill. You know, Nico is beloved by all the fans. Yeah, but it's great that what you said that they really warmed up to Simon like right away, and I'm not surprised because that's what Maiden fans are like. I mean, you and I would be the same way. I know
Mhm.
we would be. So that's really cool, and I look forward to seeing that part of the show. But um, from what I saw, again, just three songs. I, you know, I think he fits in perfect.
Yeah. For what I was able to find on Reddit, which, I don't know how legit that is, but yeah, it looks like you're correct that he's in his 60s.
Yeah,
Dude, to me, I mean, I don't think he looks quite that old, but then again, we're in our 50s, and I don't think we look that old. So it's hard for me to judge that stuff. But yeah,
yeah.
um, how about the stage show itself, based on what you were able to see? Because this is like the first time since I think you'd have to go back all the way back to like the Peace of Mind tour when I think it because Power Slave I think is the first tour where they actually had like curtains and stuff, and they've been using like the curtains ever
Hmm.
since, which I always loved because they always kept that like that little element of like old school theater to their shows.
Yeah.
And now they don't have that. They're not using that. They're using, gigantic screen behind them for the first time ever, which I'm actually kind of surprised that they're doing, but
Yeah, so it looked to me like and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked to me like the entire backdrop is just one large, huge video.
yes.
This
Yeah.
is like the size of the stage. It's like the length of the stage.
Yep.
I don't know how tall it is, but it's
Oh,
enormous.
well, yeah, it goes from the backdrop, the little walkways, all the way up to the lighting rig
Yeah,
and the
so
width, like you said, the width of the stage.
it's huge. Probably the biggest video screen that I've ever seen. Certainly, if we were to see this tour, it would be the biggest video screen we've ever seen. Um,
Not to think back, been to a lot of shows, but it's big. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably the big just because it runs the length of the stage too. I mean, so it's huge. Yeah, that's new. I'm like you. I do like the curtains because you could see like the curtain switch. You could see
Mhm.
the curtain, you know, and then you know, okay, you know what's coming next and all that, which is kind of cool. So I'm sure there's going to be a similar thing with the backdrop and the video screen. They can probably do more with the video screen though,
Oh,
like
for sure.
animated stuff or whatever they want to do. So that's really cool. I did see Bruce carrying around a flag dressed up. You know, when they did the trooper, it looks like he was. You know, it wasn't carrying the British flag though. He was carrying I would assume the Hungarian flag. So that part of the stagecraft was still there. Obviously, they're going to have the giant Eddie at least one or two times during the tour. Um, or during the show on the tour.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's going to be the inflatable Eddie or something at the end of the show, so that'll be kind of cool to see what. Oh, and you're saying no, okay, so there is no big inflatable Eddie or anything at the end of the show. So okay,
No.
so we don't have
And that's, yeah. So everything is on the screens,
okay.
like everything. But here's the cool thing. I mean, I think the side, there's always like in every arena now, they have those side projection screens, and there you'll get like close up, of you know, the
Closed
band
circuit,
playing.
the closed circuit TV.
Yeah,
The
yeah. But on the huge screen behind the band, not once in the entire show did they ever have like the closed circuit camera shots of the band up there, which I'm really glad about because to me then it's just like going to a show and watching a giant TV screen.
yeah,
It's like, you know, so the backdrops, basically what they've done with the giant screen is they've taken the old school concept of like the curtain backdrops, a different backdrop for each song and just brought it to life. So,
That's cool.
like on Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, it's really, really cool because along the top, there's those like suspended like icebergs that have like the little light bulbs hanging from them, and they're just slowly moving across the screen like that. And you see like Eddie's vertebrae, like um like a vertebrae will drop and then it'll go like that, and then the water ripples like that, and it just goes through the whole song. It's like that. Or if you looked carefully, you said you watched The Clairvoyant, the little candles next to the Eddie, they're flickering and then they light up a little bit, or his quill pen kind of moves
Hmm.
a little bit. So there's like little bits and things like that. And in some songs, it's much, much, bigger. Hallowed Be Thy Name is really cool. Find a video of Hallowed Be Thy Name and watch that. That's really cool. But the one that just blew my mind was Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner again, which this gets back to the set list thing, because it's like part of it is okay, not only the song that we're performing, but what's the show around the song. And it's like, oh my God, the visuals for Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner are just amazing. They're so cool. So cool. And as far as like the gigantic Eddie, again, spoiler alert, but it's obviously that's during the song Iron Maiden, and it's ironically Eddie from Peace of Mind, and it's just on the screen, but the dang thing looks 3D. It looks like it's coming out, at least from the video I saw, and it's like it's just on the screen. Um, But so it's like on the one hand, I'm really glad to see them kind of update and do something a little different, a little new. Um, the the ramp walkways that Bruce always is prancing around on.
Yeah.
I don't know, does Bruce prance anyway? Uh,
Well, he runs, or at
well,
least he
like
used to.
he does, but basically the scrims on those all light up as well. So like when they're doing Seventh Son, boom, they're all icebergs and stuff. Um,
So,
when they did Wasted Years, boom, it's like the inside of the cockpit of like a spaceship, and it's like the whole dang thing from lighting rig all the way down to the floor of the stage, all just looks like a spaceship.
that's cool.
So yeah, I mean it's cool, it's different. It's you know. Um, so
Is
it's like,
are they using pyro, during the
yeah,
show?
there's some pyro. In fact, it's great. There's one spot like on the very first show that I watched, um at the end of 2 minutes to midnight, because basically what they've done is they've taken the artwork, with Eddie kind of sitting there with the national flags there, and he's got his gun there, and he's okay. And you might remember in the artwork for 2 minutes to midnight, behind him there's a like a mushroom cloud, right? Well, because it's now kind of animated, so to speak, at the end of the song the mushroom cloud goes up like that. But there was a something didn't go right at the show, because once the song was over and everything went black, then this little puff it just goes poof. Like an actual real, like a real pyro thing kind of went up, and um Bruce said something like, "Boy, I love it when a plan goes well," or something like that. He just kind of, laughed it off. It's because it was clearly not timed properly, but it was kind of fun to watch. But um so yeah, now the downside to all this, I think, of course, because it's the age of the internet, um, it takes a lot of self-control to not watch any of this stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
Part of me says, don't watch any of this. Don't even look at the set list. Wait till the US shows come around. Go see the show. Like it's like that's just impossible.
It's impossible.
So it's like, okay, I just
Now, I will say, if they had already announced U.S. dates and we knew we were going to go to a show, it's a little bit more. It's easier to do that, but
yeah,
we have no idea
yeah.
about this point. So there was no way I was not going to do this. I
I
have
know, I know. And even then, it would have been real hard because it'd be like, well, next year, 2026, they'll be in, Minneapolis or something. And it's like, am I really going to be able to hold off and not watch any of this stuff?
no.
So, Yeah. But anyway, I don't know. Those are kind of the thoughts I had is, I think it's just, it's kind of a cliche, but it's like they don't disappoint, you know? Um,
No, no. I mean, like you said earlier, we're being nitpicky.
just for
Um,
the fun of it. Well, if you want to, here's another nitpick. If you want to just get to a couple other things, Adrian Smith, I had to research this a little bit, and I was doing this actually several months back. In the 80s, he had a guitar made by a company called Lado up in, I think it's a Canadian company. And he played it on the like on the Power Slave tour, and he brings that back. He's
that
playing.
must have been the guitar I saw in one of the tracks that I watched.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he played it throughout quite a bit of the show. He's playing it on the first several songs. So he was playing it on Murs in the Rue Morgue. But I think he also brought out the Ibanez Destroyer too, which is kind of cool. So you talk about like looking at details. That's, you know, and of course Yannick's playing his Strat that Ian Gillan gave him, years and years and years ago, which is always cool, with that worn off spot, where
yeah, the
his
black
forearm,
stripe,
right?
black
So
stripe.
yeah. So, it's like when they announce US dates, I'm gonna move heaven and earth to see the show because it's a cliche. They don't disappoint. Even if it's not like, oh my God, they should have played Infinite Dreams instead of this, or they could have thrown in Total Eclipse and they didn't do it. And it's like, okay, but it's still a
Yeah,
damn good show.
you'd go away from the show though, and you would say, "Shit, that was great. That was money well spent. It's Maiden. They're always awesome." I mean, we've never been to an Iron Maiden show and said that wasn't good.
Mm-mm.
Never. Doesn't matter whether it was Bruce, whether it was Blaze. Doesn't matter what
Right.
tour it was. It's
Yep.
always great.
Yep. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to add, or do you want to just do a little
No,
closeout here?
yeah, we'll do a little closeout, but we should probably just pay attention to see. I don't anticipate like minor set changes, but I'm sure we'll both be kind of out of curiosity checking to see if they do change anything up as they get into the tour. But this looks to me like a pretty solid set that they've got here.
Yeah.
I just, it's great they're bringing back Power Slave. That's awesome. Clairvoyant, Seventh Son. Um, I'm glad they're not doing, um, you know, uh, Heaven Can Wait. That's a song I really don't need. I will honestly tell you that's a song really glad they're not doing.
Yeah.
Uh, cool, they're closing with Wasted Years again. I think that's a really good closer. So, as you said, it's hard to really critique this type of a set list for these guys. They've been around for such a long time. There's a lot of things that obviously go into putting this set together that we just discussed. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. Glad they're out doing this. We know they're going to be doing this through 26. We're going to see Bruce do a solo show later this year in Chicago, which will be really cool.
Hmm.
But hopefully, we'll get the chance to see Maiden if they get some U.S. dates announced for this tour. So
Yeah.
uh, very exciting.
Well, if you're still with us and you're a huge Maiden fan, if we've said something stupid or something that you agree with or whatever, leave a comment below, like, subscribe. And one of the reasons why we do this little channel, and it's pretty lo-fi, as you can tell, we don't put a huge amount of effort into the video itself. That's because we put a lot of our spare time and effort into writing and recording music of our own. We do it under the self-deprecating name Underlords of the Overworld. Speaking of Iron Maiden, we actually had Blaze Bayley do a vocal on a song of ours called Ordo Abstrusus Oculus, which is a cryptic title, but it relates to our bass player's novels, of which she has a couple series, the OAO, Ordo Abstrusus Oculus, and an Underlords of the Overworld alternate history kind of, or
Eh,
it was something, yeah. Alternate universe kind of a thing. And he also just published recently a book of short stories called Smaller Than Death. Anyway, he writes under the name H. Prescott Lemon, and we kind of do this thing where it's like we do music and it kind of hints at or suggests or relates to the stories, They each kind of stand alone. So if you're interested in supporting local or independent artists like us, you can do so with the links below. You can get Josh's or H. Prescott Lemon's books on Amazon. You can get our stuff on Bandcamp, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. So yeah, check us out. And again, like I said, if you're a Maiden fan, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Anything else, Brent, before we say sayonara?
No, no, I think that was a good one.
Yeah,
And well,
I really wanted to know what your thoughts were, and now I do, and so does anybody else who's watching. So,
yeah, yeah, mission accomplished.
okay, over and out. Toodles.